So we're rolling into the fall, winter of 2024, and we're getting a lot of questions from everybody out there. They're wondering about the real estate market. And so in this video, we're gonna unpack all the questions. We actually asked our team who are out working with buyers and sellers every day, what are the questions that they're getting in the field? What do people actually care about? What do consumers want answers to? And we're gonna unpack that all right now in a rapid fire session for you.
So a lot of things we're going to talk about today are all over around the country, or some are pretty specific to our market here. Like, are prices still going up? Is the market going to crash? What are interest rates going to do over the next couple months? These are all questions that clients want to ask, so our agents come to us and we're going to answer them for you today.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. We have different areas in the country where the prices came up really fast. And there are areas where the prices are they are kind of crashing, in essence. They're not going back to the way they were before during the last housing crash, but they're contracting massively. But that's not true everywhere. And in fact, that's not true in most places. So if you have this belief system, because you're listening to the media, that everywhere home prices are coming down, it's not really the case. And so I can tell you specifically here in our area, in the 3 counties that we work in, the prices have gone up in the last 12 months.
We're in a different market here because we're really close to a military base. So it's always a good idea to chat with your realtor, whoever you're working with, and talk about your local real estate market. And even county to county, it's a little bit different. Here we work with 2 major counties. Thurston County's come up 2.8% in the last year, where Pierce County, 5.1. That's a huge difference just between those 2 counties right here in our area. I can't stress it enough. If you're looking for a home, get into the actual neighborhood market analysis of where you're going to be moving to, because there are so many areas that are just in fluctuation right now. It's been a weird couple of years. Some are up, some are down. Overall, nationally, it's probably pretty flat. So this year's an election year. Almost every time this happens, we've been doing this a long time, so there's usually a huge impact. Like, we see a slowdown right around election season.
Yeah, so the questions that we're getting asked, and the agents are getting asked, is, should I wait until after the election? Or what do you think will happen with the market after the election? And the answer this time is actually a little bit different. Normally we see the market, we see a great degree, so let's say 1 out of 4 people that we're working with will say something like, I'm gonna wait until after the election. And I don't know about you, and I haven't gotten this feedback from anybody else, but it's coming up because it's a question, but it's only like a small percentage of people. It seems like this election cycle, people don't really care.
Yeah.
It's not really affecting their real estate plans or their decisions.
Yeah, this year I really haven't heard much about it. And people are still moving forward, whereas typically in an election year, it would be like, I'm gonna wait until. Now it's like, oh, what do you think? Is it a big deal? And the answer I'm hearing redundantly is, this is not a big deal.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of, we can probably agree we're in a state of a lot of divisiveness. It always happens during elections, but it's a little bit greater this time around. I think people are used to just seeing a lot of different sides of the coin, and people are looking at social media more than ever. And I think they've learned to maybe filter out a little bit of that noise when it comes to their decision-making process. I think they just know that this comes along with that time of year. And so again, it's a little bit weird, but we're seeing way less of that is what you need to know, and that's the answer. Is, will it affect your purchase or your sale? No, it won't. As much as you think there's going to be a bunch of policy change regarding whatever party that you affiliate with, the real estate market will go on, and it will be just like it always was. And then maybe a new person comes into the office, or the old person, and there's some policy changes around housing, and maybe that'll eventually affect something, but it's not going to affect anything right now. All right, so next question. We are in a market where there's some seasonality, and so the question is why are houses sitting on the market a little bit longer right now? And I know I can answer it. We're coming out of the August timeframe into September, we're going into October. There is always a little bit of a slowdown in most markets when you get into the end of summer and when kids go back to school.
Yeah, every year it speeds up really fast in the spring and summertime. The turnover is much quicker, so the days on market is shorter. And then as we come out of that summer season, it can even double your market time. So it could go from 2 weeks to 4 weeks pretty easily just in seasonality alone.
Yeah, and what ends up happening as we transition into the fall is the daylight goes away, right? We have less daylight, we have more darkness. And if you're gonna buy a house and it's $500,000, you probably wanna see it, when it's light outside. And so that affects the amount of showings, which in turn has an effect on the market, which actually makes things slow down a little bit. And a lot of people feel like, who are gonna list their homes, that it will look its best in the spring.
Yeah, we get that a lot. Nobody wants to list their home when it's like gloomy and dark and all the leaves are on top of the roof and everything's a mess. So it's all this outdoor yard work stuff that needs to get done, and it's kind of a pain sometimes to get all of that done. So springtime is definitely the busiest listing season.
Well, especially in Washington. I mean, look at the weather here. It rains and then it gets dark in the fall. So it makes 100% sense. So there's a lot of different factors that contribute to that. Being able to get into properties, being able to see them. And then, let's just say it, when October, Halloween rolls around, and then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas and Christmas parties, people get really busy. And their focus is not on buying a house unless they have to buy a house. If they're moving, different story. But those elective purchases, those things where people say, you know what, I want to trade this house for a bigger one, like they just kind of park their searches in essence when we get to anywhere close to around Halloween, and then they pick them back up because we always get really busy again about the second week of January. All right, next question. This is a great question. How will rates going down, so interest rates going down a little bit, affect the market? And I know I can answer that. If the money gets cheaper to borrow and people can qualify for more people will jump into the market because they can buy the house they really want to. Or the monthly payment is less. So between those two things, what will end up happening is more people will want to buy, which means they will come out of the woodwork, and we'll have more people shopping for homes than probably people listing homes, which should drive the prices back up a little bit.
Yes, it always happens as rates go down. More people can afford to buy that home. So more people come out to look at that home. So the more eyes you get on your home, the more likely you are to get a higher price for that home. Mm-hmm. So if you exponentially times that over however many homes are on the market, all the prices tend to go up. So more buyers, higher prices. That's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, look at what happened coming out of COVID when the interest rates were 2.75, 3.0, 3.25. You got this really cheap money, and you're going to max out what you qualify for the same monthly payment. So you can get much more, right? You can get that house with the extra bedroom. You can get that, much nicer property with more upgrades, whatever the case may be. That has a effect on prices for sure, because now you got maybe 3 or 4 people wanting the same house versus only one when the rates are higher. And so yes, prices will go up if rates go down. It is a relationship that exists that's been proven over time. All right, so this next question is kind of my favorite. I thought the last one was my favorite, but I actually like real estate. But when is the best time? When is a good time to list my house for sale? Like, we could talk about this for hours, and I know you probably want the answer. You want me to tell you it is June 2nd. The reality is it's different for everybody. So let's separate this into 2 camps, all right? We're gonna talk about if you have to move or something like that, you have to go now. Like, you don't really have a choice on when. But let's say there's another camp. Let's say next year you could list your house and you could do it whenever, like it doesn't matter. You just want to know when the best time is. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on another question, where there's definitely a seasonality to real estate. So, and there's also a locationality to this as well. So depending on where you're at and what season it is that you want to move in, definitely is going to make a difference. So I think springtime is the busiest time. We do see a lot of listings in that case, but it's also the most competition. So what is your goal and what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, what's your timing? how fast do you need this to happen? That all comes down to pricing and time in the market. So there's a couple different schools of thought here, and you can win at multiple times of the year is really the answer. So you can beat the spring market. So you can go in our area, you can go in March or something like that. Most of the sales happen in June and July. That's when most of the sales are recorded and things like that. It's also when the most people jump into the market to actually buy. So you get the most buyers. But here's the thing. When you're in an appreciating market, let's say you're in a new construction neighborhood. It's, well, not new construction, but a subdivision with the same floor plans over and over and over, right? What will end up happening is somebody will list, let's call it the 2,500 square foot plan. They'll list that and in February, and then one will sell maybe in March, and then maybe one will sell in June, and you've seen this before. And everybody tries to beat each other by a few $1,000s, right? And so you can take advantage of that by actually going a little bit later in the year. And now you can set a slightly higher price because now you've got all this sales footprint behind you of closings that an appraiser can use to justify a higher value in an appreciating market. So there's a little bit like two answers to this question. Beat the spring market or go a little bit later in the year, but don't wait until August. If you're gonna wait until August, you might as well wait until September, about mid-September, when the secondary market starts up. So we have two different markets. We have one in the spring and we have one in the fall. And so really you're just choosing, are you the spring one or are you the fall one? All right, so buying a house is a really scary thing, especially if you're a first-time buyer. And a lot of people are even scared to do it, so they'll wait until they're 50 years old to buy a home, and some people do it when they're 20, and that's just how it goes. What people are always wondering, and this is the question, is can I back out of the contract at any time? And the answer to that is you have to know your contract. And you have to work with an agent that can help you understand it so you know where your points are, where you can back out.
So typically in a real estate contract, there's several spots where there's a time frame that you can back out. And I assume with this question, the question is, can I back out and not lose anything, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the other caveat. You can back out. You're just going to lose your earnest money, right?
Yeah.
But if you want your money back, then you have to work within your contingency period. So typically there's a short one in the beginning that's just kind of like everybody getting to know each other in the first day or two. And then there's an earnest money deposit that has to be made within a certain time frame. And then usually, almost always, and we highly recommend that you do an inspection on a home. And in that case, it's typically like 5 to 10 days.
Yeah, and there's other contingencies too. Sometimes you have to sell your house to be able to buy this one, which gives you an out. There's an appraisal, there's financing. There's a lot of different ways to actually sort of back out of an agreement and get your deposit back, but definitely don't take our advice on this video. If you were buying a home, you'd want to know the ins and outs of that agreement. You'd want to work with your realtor and ask that question in advance of the steps that are happening so that you always know when you can exit. That's the most important thing, is understanding when you can exit. And you want to work with somebody who can actually give you the confidence that this is correct. And if you don't feel like you're in that situation with that person, you're going to want to read the contract, and if push comes to shove, maybe consult with some outside counsel, right?
Yeah, this question, is it a buyer's market, is a little bit confusing for people to really wrap their minds around sometimes. Because right now what we're seeing is homes that are not priced right, that sit on the market for longer than a few weeks, that average market time gets overtaken, then all of a sudden you can start to negotiate a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So being able to negotiate, though, doesn't necessarily mean the whole market has shifted into a buyer's market. It just means for that particular home, they may have overshot the price a little bit or just decided not to negotiate with the first buyer that came along. So now the second one, they're having to maybe make some concessions along the way. So home to home, it's a little bit case by case.
I mean, it could just be that the condition of that house is not what the market wants for that price. Could be a lot of things, but like you said, the whole market, definitely favoring the seller right now. Most homes are still selling pretty fast. In fact, what is the average days on market right now? So we're still dealing with about 30 days in our market. So you have to get to where it's much higher for it to be favoring the buyers, all of the buyers. So this question goes hand in hand. People are asking our agents, can I send an offer that's lower than the list price and get all my closing costs paid? So what they want to do is say that, let's say there's a house in the market for $550. What they want to do is offer $530 or something lower, and they actually want to ask for the seller to pay their closing costs as well. And so Jessica's going to answer that. Nice fun one for you.
The answer is yes. You can offer anything you want. You can get crazy with your offer if that's what you want to do. But on the flip side of that is, how bad do you actually want this home? Do you want to move into it? And then what can you afford is the other piece. So, if the value of the home is $550 and you want to offer $530 and everyone is clear that the value is $550, they're probably not going to accept your offer, and then you're not going to have a place to live. So it just depends on what your overall goal is. If you're just trying to get a deal, a seller's market is a tough place to do that unless you're making some sort of concession for the condition of the home or something is wrong with the location, something's going on. That value is probably going to come into play as far as price goes in a market like ours.
Yeah, if somebody chooses the high price, what they're probably going to do is it's going to take them a week or two to figure out that the price is too high that they set. Because either one, very few people are going to look at it, or the people that do look at it aren't going to make any offers. And so you have to market time is a major factor in what you can negotiate. I mean, plain and simple. So if you've got a house that's been on the market for 3 months, can you go negotiate? Probably. They might be ready to drop the price by then. They probably should have dropped it already. But you're in a market where, again, to Jessica's point, the asking price is just the asking price. Some people set a way too high asking price. It means the house is probably worth way less. It means that you should pay way less. And it's taking some market time for the seller to figure out that they made a mistake. And so it all comes into play here. So it's very situational on the house. What you want to do is work with a realtor that can actually understand what the true value of the property is and do their own analysis. Because we can pick 10 houses out in the marketplace right now, and I can tell you that 3, 4, 5 of them might be overpriced.
And it's a great strategy. If you need your closing costs paid by the seller, just talk to your realtor about that. And then in a market like ours, where the average price we already said is 30 days or so, go look at homes that have been on the market for 40 days or more.
Yeah.
And then the likelihood of you getting the seller to make some concessions and pay your closing costs is far higher.
Yeah, and if on the flip side of that, if the house just got listed yesterday and it's $600,000 and your realtor says, you know what, this is priced right, it's probably going to sell fast, it might even sell for more. And then you can't go and negotiate a way under asking price deal with closing costs. It's just not realistic to the situation. So, and if you put yourself in the seller's shoes, which I tell people a lot, just put yourself in their shoes. Let's say you had a house, this was your house, and you just listed it, and you listed it for $600. Would you accept the offer for $565 right now after only 1 day on the market, or would you want to test the market out a little bit?
Yeah, would you want to wait those 30 days and make sure that if that's the average market time, that you haven't undercut yourself by jumping the gun and hurrying too fast and accepting that first offer?
Yeah, for everybody that wants to get a deal, there's somebody on the other side of the equation that wants to get the most amount of money. So, you got to come together on this thing. But the answer is understanding the real value of the property, because I could help somebody list a house tomorrow that's worth $500,000 for $1 million. Are they going to get $1 million? Not if the market and the agents are doing their jobs, right? And if the consumers are savvy and they know there's no way in hell this is $1 million house, you're never going to get it, right?
And then the banks are not going to close either. So you're going to have to find a cash buyer that's willing to drop $1 million on a little house, and that's not going to happen.
Yep, there's safeguards in place for this. All right, so typically when people go negotiate, they get the offer accepted, they have a home inspection contingency. In that home inspection contingency, the question is what can I ask the seller to fix? Like, what kinds of things make sense, right? This question comes up all the time, and it's coming up now, again and again and again.
The answer is you can ask for just about anything, just like the other questions.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want to do. But again, it's like, what is your goal? Are you trying to buy this home? Or are you trying to make the seller really mad? Because those are two different things, because this is a collaborative effort. So if there are some things that need to be fixed for the loan to close, like safety health issues, or something major that you're just like, you know what, at this price, it's not worth us having to do this particular thing. So those are kind of the questions you have to ask yourself for that specific home. Like, what is it worth to you at this price?
Yeah, and it depends on your negotiation, right? What if 3 other people want the house? What if there's a backup offer already behind you, and you're going to come in and ask for a ton of things? So, you know, the home inspection is meant to protect the buyer. So what I always say is, you know, big ticket items, like if you're going to have to put a new roof on, if you're going to have to replace the siding, so big ticket items, right? Totally reasonable to make those requests, because if the seller knows they need a new roof and they're selling their home, they should be anticipating that coming up and being an issue. And they should have addressed it probably before they listed the house, but not everybody has the ability and the cash to do that.
Yeah, we call that deferred maintenance, meaning like you lived in the home for 20 years, you used up all the roof life, and then you left me to fix it for you. And that's not really a fair place to leave it, right? So then you're going to see that reflected in the price, right? And then that's when you get a deal, right? Because hopefully you can get it for less than the cost of what it would be to fix the roof. But those are all things that you have to really figure out and work with your realtor to negotiate for.
It's a navigation, you know, and if you don't have a lot of disposable cash, you got to go ask for those things to be corrected. And if you can't get to a mutual ground, then you can't get to a mutual ground. And the inspection contingency is meant to protect you in that, meaning you can back out and get your deposit back as long as your contract is airtight. So, but to answer the question, what is the most common things? Big ticket items that maybe the seller is aware of, things that are going to cost a lot of money essentially. Anything health and safety, like you had talked about, right? Like I got to be able to live here and I got to be safe. And then it comes down to like the deferred maintenance stuff. And we're not talking about cosmetics. We're talking about like maybe you haven't looked in your crawl space in the whole time you've lived there, and it has rodents in it, right? And so that kind of is a health and safety, and there's a major problem that we weren't aware of because we never pop our head down and look under our house.
Yeah, or you didn't paint your house in the last 6 years, and all the caulk and seal around the windows or whatever just needs to be done. And there is a cost to that. You know, if you're going to hire someone to do it and do it right, and it's a big house, it could be $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 to get that done. And people don't realize that until their home inspector says, "Oh, this house needs to be painted this year." And they're like, "Oh, how much is that?" And you're like, "Oh, $8,000." And you know, it's a thing.
Yeah.
So it just depends on exactly what comes up on your inspection, where you're at with doing that kind of stuff on your own, how much it costs to get it done, and what you're willing to pay for the house.
Yeah, and I always say try to make it black and white. You know, if you've got 4 problems, what is the actual cost going to be? And then try to negotiate for that cost or close to that cost to where it makes you comfortable moving forward in the event you have to fix things after you move in. And the thing is there's contractors that are willing to be paid at escrow. There's like a lot, this could be a whole separate video. There's a lot of ways around this. But to answer the question, you know, big ticket items, health and safety. So out of this conversation, if you came up with some questions, add them in the comments below. We'll answer every single one of them. Hopefully this made sense for you, and if it did not, and you have specific questions, reach out to us, and we will answer them for you.
If you're thinking about moving to the South Puget Sound area, check out our channel. We have pros and cons videos of different areas around the South Puget Sound and JBLM, which is our military base nearby. We love helping people make wise decisions about real estate, so let us help you out.